We will get going. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Basis Elect Bootcamp, Winning with Audio. I am Sean Duggan. I am the Vice President of Candidates and Causes. Super excited to dive into audio today. I'm going to be joined by my colleague, Kristen Battersby, who will give a little bit of an intro, but by way of introduction, I joined Basis back in September of last year. My background, I spent about 21 years of my career in audio. Started out in NPR in New York, WFUV, still big fan, listener. Then went to ABC, ESPN, radio networks in their streaming division as they were launching it. And then joined Pandora in 2009, when things were just getting going. Actually, the pitch from the chief revenue officer at the time is, Sean, this is time to get on board. We are on the Apple iPhone and we are about to launch on the BlackBerry. And I was at I'm in. But super excited. In addition to other companies, I've been in the political space for 15 years, roughly. And where I actually worked with Kristen. Kristen, want to give a little bit of your background?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Kristen Battersby. I've been at Basis for 7 years. And I was in radio for 15 years, iHeart and CBS, back and forth a little bit there. And then I started working at Pandora in 2013. And it was already a rocket ship. And it was incredible. And from there, I've been on the political team or in political work for 10 years. And I'm super excited to share all the audio stuff we have with you today. I'm just going to go over the agenda a little. Thanks everybody for coming. First of all, we're really happy to have you. We're going to talk about the audio marketplace. We're going to talk about the audio investment gap, move into the changing streaming market, of course, talk about podcasting. And then we get what everybody's been waiting for, to ask the experts. We're going to have John Padua from Trilogy and Liz Ring from Direct Persuasion. And then we'll have some Q&A. So we want this to be conversational. If you have questions, of course, put them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. But thanks for being here. First up, I'm going to talk about Basis a little. Like I said, I've been here 7 years. And I'm basically a newcomer. People that work here for a very long time. And one of the amazing things about it is that you can work with us in two different ways. One way is managed service. We can help you put together, strategize, build your media plans, execute them, do the reporting and the optimizing. But if you'd rather have hands-on keyboard, of course, we have the software that you can take in-house and do all your own media buying. But we will still work in lockstep with you as a team, which I think is incredible and really helpful to have those options. We've been around the political team since 2006, so 20 years. We are growing in that way. We have 45 plus folks who are experts at political buying, optimizing, and making sure that your targeting is on point. We've done over 10,000 state and local campaigns since 2006, and where some other folks are pulling away from the political world, we just keep diving in even more. We do have award-winning tech, not to toot our own horn, but we're really proud of our software and looking forward to helping you guys navigate the audio landscape. Over to you, Sean.
So before we jump in, this is the headline. Spoiler alert. Everything we're going to cover for the next 30 minutes or so is really pointing to one fact, is that audio is underinvested in broadly. I don't care if it's consumer advertising, you're talking about major brands from Procter & Gamble to auto, but particularly in political, audio is egregiously underinvested in. And we're going to talk about, hey, why? John and Liz are going to really dive into the weeds of, hey, why is it happening? There are some reasons that there are some things that are unique to audio that are different than like CTV. And we're going to really get into hey, the hard truths around it, but also the extraordinary opportunities. As a housekeeping, just to get us that the whole content is roughly about Kristen and myself will give you about 15 minutes of overview marketplace, and then it's going to be a discussion. So please put your questions in the chat. We're happy to take any and all questions as we dive in. This will be recorded. We are archiving all of our Basis Bootcamp sessions this cycle. We have our YouTube session, which we did about 4 weeks ago. That'll be available. And everybody who joins will receive a copy of the video along with this deck. So do not feel like you have to take screenshots or anything like that. You will get it. This is all stuff that we're putting out there. We work very closely with our Basis research team for all of the data here. And so let's dive in. Let's go. Okay, so apologies. This one's a little bit hard to read. But number one, audience starts there. It's you look at the number of listeners, roughly 183 million monthly listeners are listening to some form of, okay, they're on iHeart app, they're listening to Pandora, they're listening to Deezer, they're listening to Learfield Sports, which I do as a Providence fan whose team is no longer playing, so I will not be listening to Learfield Sports today. But there are so many apps out there, and then the podcast, which Kristen will take you through. Number one, good news is the audience is there. Next slide. One slide. If there's one slide that you remember for the next 20 minutes, this is it. This is a snapshot from Ad Impact of the total investment in video and audio. Roughly $11 billion was spent in the 2024 election. Of that, 300 million, and now for level setting and clarity, 300 million, that's every radio station, podcast, total bought on Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, and every other app was 300 million. When you dial it down to streaming, which is what we're focused on today, under 1%. Today, again, survey of one, I've already listened to 2 hours of audio this morning. Average US consumer will spend 20% of their daily consumption with audio, with the reality, many people spending way over that, over 4 hours. So there is no way, actually, you can probably over-invest in audio this cycle. And that's the real takeaway. What we'll get into is how do you practice it? How do you buy the right targeted inventory? How do you make it easy to do that? John and Liz are going to provide some great insights, so I won't spend a ton of time on that right now. And Kristen, you are doing a great job on the slides. You said you'd be intuitive, and you are being intuitive. So I'm saluting you over there in Laurel Canyon. Okay, guys. Challenge number one, not everyone accepts political ads. So right here, and if it's hard to see, the very large group, and probably not surprising, bar graph is Spotify. That is total audience. Spotify is doing a terrific job getting folks to pony up $10, $8, $15 a month for ad-free music. They've proven it. We'll dive in a little deeper. But when you look at the addressable audience, you can kind of do the math. We will show you what that looks like, because what we're talking today is the addressable audience. Then you start looking at iHeart, Spotify, and you start looking at a picture of parity. You can go next slide. To do a little bit of a dive into everyone, and the first thing we'd say is engage us as a follow-up. If you have questions, we have the buying team which Kristen has said, they've been buying political ads for over 20 years. Please reach out to us. We'll give you our contact at the end, but also engage these publishers and solution networks directly. Spotify, 751 million global listeners, huge in terms of share. You saw in the previous slide. Pandora, Sirius, Kristen and I worked there. We combined, over 15 years, unbelievably. And, Pandora is still a revenue advertising engine. They do a great job monetizing, now owned by Sirius. They obviously have satellite. They have podcast business with AdsWiz and Pandora. Pandora, great targeting. The reality is, hey, their audience, while smaller than when I work there, it still has scale, has the targeting at geo, and it's now an older skewing demo, which is, hey, very appealing, making sure you're reaching voters to get out. iHeart, they are the behemoth of broadcast. And when I say iHeart, you should be also thinking Cats. You're like, hey, where's Cats? It's like Cats is owned by iHeart. Hey, very strong programming. From a podcasting perspective, they are producing podcasts that are across all platforms, which is something that Kristen will hit on, is like, hey, even though they're producing it, it's ubiquitous. It's on every platform. So from a growth standpoint, they're really growing, but think of it as a studio, like a Hollywood studio. They're producing, and the podcasts go out everywhere. They're not just living on the iHeart app. Very strong news programming. Dax Audio is probably the name you don't recognize, even though, hey, they've been around 10 years, coincidentally started by a former Pandora colleague. Actually, a guy who worked for me, amazingly. He doesn't have to work anymore. But Dax has been around for 10 years. They are a great company. And really, interestingly, in the mix here is, and why we're going to kind of mention them in the same breath, is that they are focused on one thing. They do not have a subscription service they're pushing. They are focused on premium ad-supported inventory across music, news, talk, entertainment. And just as a sidebar, there's 40 million listeners that they have exclusivity to. So we'll dive into that a little bit further. So a quick snapshot of, hey, like we covered a lot in the first 5 slides, is, hey, this is a snapshot of approximately what the market looks like today. And things are changing, because podcasts that was exclusive to Sirius XM and 24 could very likely be with another company. Spotify, a lot of their podcasts have migrated onto there's a tremendous amount of war in terms of talent. But from a addressability and audience perspective, you should be thinking, when I started in the political business, it was like Pandora. Then a few years later, it was Spotify, iHeart, as they started rolling out. Now you really need to think the market has evolved. If you're buying audio the way you bought it 10 years ago, you are missing listeners and voters. Quick snapshot, Dax. If you want more information, we're really excited. I had been working with Dax when I left Sirius XM. I worked with them the last election cycle, which was amazing just to see, the amount of targeting they have and audience growth. We're excited. Actually, Basis has exclusivity with Dax. So, hey, if you want more information on Dax, contact is in the email at the final slide. Please reach out to us. But bottom line, what they're doing is the network first fail on going too fast there, Kristen. Okay, you'll be penalized 2 points for that one. Just being transparent. Go back 1 slide, please. What they're focused on is premium, like, hey, Learfield Sports. It's great sports content, like college sports primarily, but all sports. Like, I listen to that regularly. Does it have 30 million listeners? No. But does it have millions? Yes. Deezer, same way. When you look at an aggregate, real scale, real targeting solutions. Now you can go ahead. And I'm messing, by the way. You're doing great. And you have the baton. So Kristen's going to now take you through the podcast market. And again, guys, please drop any questions in the chat. If you have anything, AJ is keeping an eye on our team, and we'll make sure we get to this.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Welcome to the podcasting segment. Super excited to talk about this. I mean, we all have, and now I have to also do my slides. I mean, there we go. We all have our favorite podcasts, right? I mean, I love Betrayal when I'm feeling like dark or something was wrong. I also love, when I need a pick-me-up, Amy Poehler's Good Hang or Smartless. So everybody's got a podcast that they love. They're super engaged. They love the hosts, and we know that this is obviously a growing audience, and you can't really ignore podcasts when you're looking at advertising. And it is a huge universe, as you know, and that's why we're here to help you. We can help you navigate this wild west of a universe to get you where you will reach people who are receiving ads. When you look at the growth of the podcast market, it's insane. I mean, we're looking at this year and expected almost 150 million monthly listeners, engaged monthly listeners, with it going up to 165 million by 2029. The biggest players, obviously, YouTube. Everybody listens to YouTube. I don't personally listen to YouTube, but I need to probably jump on that bandwagon, although I'm a little late. Spotify is a huge player. Again, these numbers are all for all listeners, not just people who are receiving ads, so keep that in mind. But again, we can help you navigate that world. Apple Music, huge player. They don't take ads at all. So just important to note the growth. And then, of course, we have iHeart, who is growing and growing, and like Sean said, producing incredible podcasts, and we can help you navigate that as well. While we're toting how amazing the audience is for podcasts, that can't be ignored, there are opportunities, obviously, but there are also challenges, and we're excited to hear what Liz has to say, because there's a lot of different ways to advertise on podcasts, right? There's live reads and there's non-live reads, just regular ads that run, but not all of them are going to take political. So we just want to be very honest about that up front. One of the good ways that Sean and I were kind of talking about before the webinar is that you can get your comms team to get them interviewed. That's a great way to get your message across. But it is tough to navigate, and we are here to help in that situation if you're having struggles with that. And now we're back to Sean.
Great. Okay. Last section before we dive into talking to John and also Liz, but go ahead. You can dive right in, KB. What we want to highlight here is, hey, we've hit on podcasting, streaming, the combo of CTV and audio, because CTV is the fastest growing medium out there in political, hands down, and in the consumer business. What we want to do is give you a snapshot of how these are complementary, how you can expand reach and frequency, and also just creative diving in. So you can go ahead. Next one. Okay. Audio reach and frequency. So when you're thinking about CTV, we did a snapshot of a few players here. We have Hulu, Roku, and Pluto TV. These are numbers we've had from eMarketer. They're, roughly, again, this is, Hulu with ads, which, hey, that's a growing piece of it. From a CTV perspective, pricing, a lot of people on the call can cite, hey, where the CPMs were last cycle. And I'm sure some of the CPMs are already above where it's been because, hey, some races in Texas, we just had some races this week in Illinois, are probably north of this. From an audio perspective, we have efficiency, just a pure math. You're talking 15 to 35 plus in terms of CPMs, roughly half the CPM cost. And then from a reach perspective, we just have up here Dax, Pandora, and then also Sirius. Tremendous reach. You can look at it. It's these are pretty big CTV networks right here, some of the top ones. Every audio network matches it in terms of scale. So from a unique perspective, when you're kind of also hitting a level of saturation with CTV, the best place you could probably reallocate some of your dollars is audio for extensive reach. You can go next slide. We are going to dive in, and John and Liz, we will have you guys. I'm going to start off with a question. I'm going to start off with either one of you dive in first. Thank you again for joining us. Top thoughts, Liz. When you're thinking audio, hey, you guys work with advocacy clients, political clients. what's a reaction you get when you guys present audio? Like a real reaction from clients, some perspective.
Yeah, I would say it totally depends on the clients. We have some clients that they trust us. They're like, okay, like this sounds great, really into it. And then we have some that, CTV is like such a buzzword. They're hyper focused on that, and they kind of, have one vision of how they want their ads to look, and it's usually like a CTV ad. So audio can be a little bit of an uphill battle, but it's definitely a mixed bag depending on the client and what the client's goals are, of course, too.
John, anything to piggyback on that from Liz?
I think it's been like the past year or so has been a little bit more transformative as far as our conversations with audio. I think folks are more interested in audio because we have been doing a lot of education as well as an agency to our clients about the importance of audio and how I would say underutilized market as we've seen in the past few slides. So I think the one of the things that clients are always are on the lookout for is what's new, what's interesting, or what are we not taking advantage of? And like from a market opportunity standpoint, and from a cost perspective and a reach perspective, audio is definitely up there as far as one of the options that at least we have, even as just part of our own proposals to new clients and new business development prospects is, hey, you need to be investing in audio. If you don't select me for this race, that's fine. But let me tell you, you got to be putting more money down here.
That's great. What about I'll have you guys actually brought some examples. I have some more questions, but I don't want to have you guys go in. John, why don't you take us through HMP, and then Liz has some great insights on podcasts about like brass tacks, how they got it done. Kind of amazing stuff. But John, why don't you give whatever you can share? We can start them and play first. You want to play it first?
Sure. Let me give like the quick like 30,000-foot view.
Okay.
These two samples that I brought in from HMP are from the California 13 race, which was run by Adam Gray by exactly 187 votes. So pretty close race for a congressional. That being said, I think when you think about it that way, every tactic matters, every vote counts, and every impression matters from that perspective. So from here, we definitely invested in the audio standpoint. We're gonna play a couple of creative examples here to kind of give a sense of like the district, and then I'll kind of walk you through some of the thinking.
Action! When he ran for office, John Duarte promised to protect us. Cut! But in Congress, he's pushing to strip away our freedoms, voting to restrict abortion access, and aligning with politicians who support a national abortion ban, and even limiting access to birth control and IVF. These are the scenes John Duarte doesn't want you to see. This election, the show's over. Vote Duarte out. That's a wrap! Paid for by HMP, thehousemajoritypac.com, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Action!
That's the sound of the Central Valley's most precious resource, and we can count on Adam Gray to protect it. He led the fight against the state water grab and secured funds to build new water storage facilities, repair aging canals, and improve groundwater basins in our community. Water keeps the Central Valley working, and Adam Gray keeps the water flowing. Vote Adam Gray for Congress. Paid for by HMP, thehousemajoritypac.com. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Example here as far as kind of what we consider, one of our creative philosophies is really kind of capturing the vibe of the district and understanding the people and the voters within it. And California 13 is a California Central Valley Fresno district. It's rural, it's farmers, and a lot of people who make their money by living off the land. And things like water rights are incredibly important, but also things like freedom and being able to have basic access to bodily services is incredibly important. So I think that's one of the things that we're able to kind of like run this kind of like double track message. And I think that's what's kind of like great about audio. It gives us the flexibility where it's like we know that, hey, we can have opportunities where we can run more positive and we have opportunities where we can run more negative and kind of like play that intelligently. The other side of that is From a creative standpoint, knowing your limitations, I mean, sometimes you'll have like a video component, but then we go in assuming that people are, in their cars or listening. There are various modes of listening. Some folks have it on in the background while they're working. But in this particular case, when you're looking at California 13, you're looking this at as you know, as a commuter district because people are moving around a lot. You're looking at this as a district where people are working, are listening while they're working, from where they're at. So I think that's where we want to make sure that we are smart with our creative. We get the point across very quickly, and we have a little bit of like things that what I call kind of like a little bit of a boop to like get people to listen and understand like, hey, this is a little bit different than what you're typically going to hear in an ad commercial or a commercial. So we want to make sure that we're kind of zigging when other people are zagging, or the other way around, vice versa.
John, quick follow-up on that. Do you recall, like, hey, when it was decided audio is going to be part of the mix here with that? Because that, the thing that we've always kind of experienced, and I'm speaking from primarily, we're working with DAX, but also it's late. It's a late decision, but I'm just curious what you could share, like, and Liz, feel free to chime in also and say, I know you're a podcast, but like, how is it still a phenomenon that, hey, like once CTV gets tight, then the phone rings for audio?
No, I think this particular district was early in the process.
Okay.
It was early in the process because, again, it's looking at the makeup of the district. It's looking at it as a commuter district. It's looking at it as a rural district, and it's a lot of time in cars. So I think that's where we decided, hey, look, we need to make audio a piece of our pie here.
Liz, anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think to John's point, it's definitely very much like an audience play. I think a lot of the use cases where, we were successful was we were trying to reach our audience where they were. If, to John's example, they're commuters in the car. If, they're an audience that's already listening to these podcasts, like it makes sense to target them there. So that's kind of the way we think of it. It doesn't always, audio might not make the most sense for every single use case depending on the audience, but I think there's a lot of times where your audience is already listening to audio, so it isn't very natural.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you. Great. Thank you, John. Liz, we'll get into now. Liz is going to share, like, hey, we've said podcasting is hard. It's true. It's still possible. So Liz, take it. And Kristen, you can go to her slides. I think we have a few slides for Liz.
Yeah, I can talk through and kind of set the scene of what we did last cycle. So we were working on behalf of a C4. It was called Send the Vote. It was part of MAGA Inc. And we were tasked with reaching what has been referred to as the bro vote. So these people were already listening to podcasts. A lot of these, I am obviously not part of the bro vote audience. So a lot of these podcasts were like new for me. I had never heard of some of them, candidly, but since we were working on a C4 and it wasn't on behalf of an actual candidate, we were able to go direct to a lot of these podcasts, able to, either negotiate rates or make sure that our ads appeared there. So you can see this kind of shows how the Trump podcast appearance had either a great deal or somewhat of an influence on how people voted, and then kind of matching that with where we were able to negotiate and actually appear in a lot of cases, doing host-read ads. So I think the next slide goes into kind of what we saw in terms of efficiency. So we were able, through where we had those host-read ads, we were able to reach over 7 million voters at a really, really cheap cost per reach. And then we were, a lot of the times we were able to negotiate where the host read ads. We also used a CTV ads. So we were able to kind of repurpose them on the CTV side of things. Obviously, host read ads are a little bit of a challenge. It's a nationwide play, so there's no targeting that you can layer on. There was a lot of hosts that we reached out to, we really wanted to work with. They were not interested in talking about politics, understandably, in some cases. So it was definitely not a strategy that I would recommend for every single, campaign or candidate, but it was something that, we were able to put together with a lot of different partners and ended up being one of the cheapest ways we were able to reach voters and engage with them. And then also in a lot of cases created some sort of, organic engagement, whether that's, just like people posting about it or even being able to repurpose it for CTV ads.
That's amazing. So multiple questions firing in my head, Liz. Okay, first off, how long from like, hey, like we're gonna try this? Like, it says just, I could be wrong, but this feels like this was not a 1 week process.
No, this was definitely like a big part of like to your point, like it was not doing audio and doing podcasts was definitely not an afterthought of the media plan at all. It was basically the audio section was its own little mini media plan instead of just being a line item on it. And it took a lot of calls with people's teams, getting talent involved in certain situations, and a lot of back and forth. So it definitely ended up probably from like start to finish was definitely probably like around a 2 month process.
Okay. That feels actually fast, considering, that's
we
seems
were on like
accelerated.
a tight timeline, obviously. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of people that we spent a lot of time engaging, and at the end, they didn't feel comfortable with it. We didn't end up moving forward with them. So it was definitely a lot of back and forth, which sometimes can be a tough part of doing the host read ads. But this was just also one part of the audio strategy. We did, some insertion ads that were not host read that, were able to help us expand our reach as well. But obviously the host read ads had a big benefit of feeling like authentic, kind of natural if the host is also talking about this.
I have a
Right.
quick follow-up to that, just to ask John, have you had experience using podcasts? Was it the same journey for you?
We've also had experience using podcasts. I think we haven't had as successful of a journey, unfortunately. I think part of it is also talking about like host acceptance and whether or not they're willing to read or take your ad. Famous example that we were working on an advocacy client that a certain governor wouldn't read our ad. Yeah, these are certain things that sometimes just don't work in your favor, but it does mean that it goes back to I think Liz's approach. You have to have this as kind of its own mini part of your media plan. It has to be more than just a line item that you just kind of like, oh, cool, it's just a line item. We're going to throw money at the problem. You actually have to kind of engage if you're going to have a more developed podcast strategy.
Yeah. What about that's great. And guys, and everyone, we do have some questions coming in, so we'll get to those now. If you want to go open up to next, we can go into the next section, but it's like, but John, let me ask you, and John or Liz, hey, can you share with candor, hey, what are some of the reasons why, hey, like pain points of audio? I mean, Liz, you kind of articulated there that it's like, this is not like a launch in a week. You take 2 months on an accelerated standpoint, but maybe like, hey, is it some things that maybe that just is it hard, like it's not as easy to get programmatically, maybe some things that maybe were perceptions but maybe are changing now. Just would love to hear any of those pain points that would be helpful for building out.
One of the first pain points of production and approvals. When you have like very regulated systems and you have some very, very, well-meaning legal teams that are in your business. It's like, and you have a significant amount of things to do in any given race. This is, it's not an easy thing to just, hey, look, I'm just going to add audio on because it is another creative asset. So I think that's part one that folks need to get over. And I say get over because it's like, this is, I think, such a critical piece of a buy that you just need to like kind of, recognize that this is going to be a piece of the buy and you need to build it into your creative timelines up front as a campaign. So I think that's part one. And part two is kind of that education piece is like making sure that like, hey, well before that media plan actually shows up on the client's desk, that you've taught them that the importance of audio and that this is something that we need to address because of the amount of reach available to us and the market efficiencies.
Great. Yeah. So kind of getting that on the agenda early and not
Yeah.
like afterthought. Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Liz, anything to add there in terms of your experience? Obviously, we talked about the podcast, but anything else like broadly, like that you kind of hear recurring themes or pain points that you'd share?
Yeah, I hear it very similar to what John said with like the creative, obviously you can't repurpose, an audio ad for something else. We see a lot of clients that, like to repurpose their social ads for programmatic or whatnot. So getting audio as that separate creative and getting that kind of built in, that approved, is definitely something that we've seen as a challenge. And then also obviously there's so many you can go direct to all of the companies that you guys mentioned, whether it's Spotify or SiriusXM, but also buying programmatically. So very similar to CTV where there's a lot of options and a lot of different places to buy depending on what you're looking for can sometimes feel a little, I think, overwhelming at first, but once you kind of get a lay of the land, I would say it makes, to John's point, a lot of sense and needs to kind of be pre-built into those plans.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. So Haley, the planning key, and also just again, not an afterthought. Hey, early in the cycle, like so you guys, it sounds like you're thinking about it already for this fall. So a couple questions coming in, which we'll add here, and before we kind of wrap up, is one question that came in was regarding Netflix. And actually, I saw this. Major platforms like Netflix are entering the podcast market space. How do you see buying process changing in terms of accessing inventory? So to address Netflix specifically, it's funny, I was texting with Kristen about 10 minutes before we started because I was on Netflix the other day, like looking for like trying to catch up with my final Oscar watching. And they have a podcast channel now, like at the top where you can it's like shows, movies, and then podcasts, which but as of today, and again, today, this is going to be recorded for everybody sharing out as of 3/19, 2026. So I'm fully compliant. Netflix is not accepting ads. John, Liz, please correct me, but they have not taken political ads to date. Is that still correct in my understanding? Okay, yeah. So I think that's an interesting one. I think hey, they are taking ads from a consumer standpoint, but then Robin, hi Robin. Do any of your SSP partners create audio ads as an added value? I will share here that yes, I know that not every company, and again, I'm not going to speak on behalf of iHeart, Spotify, and Sirius, but I know, for example, that there are providers like DAX, like we've done production work for audio. So it is something which is increasingly common. Not everybody's going to do it, but yes, in short, yes, there is production services available. And I would just challenge, hey, like if I think John and Liz hit on this, it's not just doing the like. I think with John's team, Liz's team, they can make a great audio ad from a text perspective, from a content perspective, to kind of speak to, hey, whether it's farmers in a rural area, swing district, but the challenge is also just legal compliance. Because the cost of a $2,000 legal advisor to still evaluate all the creative is a real cost. But I would just encourage everyone to reach out to their partners, whether that's Pandora, Sirius, iHeart, and Spotify, and say, hey, we need help with it. It's a resource that we also have here at Basis. So please tap into us as you need to. And I think any other questions I'm missing? What we'll do is if we don't have other questions, what I'll do is I'll just kind of, kind of final thoughts, and you can go back to that next slide. And John, Liz, anything kind of like a final PSA as you want to do? I'll before I kind of do a recap and we'll wrap things up. No?
I'd say just plan your audio campaigns early, make room for it in the buy, and make sure you're educating your clients.
Right. Liz, anything on your end?
I would definitely agree with that. And just think of, you know, where your audience is probably that you want to target is probably already listening to audio, and how can you hit them there?
Great, great. By the way, Kristen, all my accolades for transition slides have been taken away. But no, thank you, Liz and John. I'm kidding. No, great. Hey, like the planning, loud and clear with Liz and John. Hey, like intentional. Think of it early. I mean, it's like Liz talked about it for 2 months. They were working on this. It's something which hey they had in the game plan, and obviously it really moved the needle. We also have some last questions in. I'll kind of just hit on a few things of the takeaways here. Efficient CTV plus reach. John, Liz both said it, planning early. We didn't talk a ton about advocacy, but podcasts, amazing for advocacy. You know, for like, hey, whether it's an issue, a local municipal issue, or something at a federal level, or corporate advocacy. Like right now, like we were super busy with this Netflix Paramount thing for the last 2 months. Like those kind of things are amazing for audio. Lock in inventory early, hear that loud and clear. And then last but not least, be thoughtful per John and Liz. Hey, get the scripts in early, get it into your queue in terms of workflow with teams. Last questions before we wrap up, guys. And let me know if I miss anything else. I'll take a look at the here. Okay. Compare the value of terrestrial versus digital. You know what, John, Liz, do you want to chime in on that one? Go ahead.
I'd say it's I mean that's part of like how you're running your buys. Like if you're running it via iHeart, then you can kind of get some of that crossover. I'd also say that it's kind of a mix. I'd say I lean more digital as far as like your overall mix because that's kind of like where the reach and where the I was about to say eyeballs, but where the ears are. But I'd want to run kind of the numbers a little bit for each, whether it's a district or whether it's a state, and kind of understand before I kind of make a decision either way.
Great. Liz, anything on your end you want to hit on the terrestrial on your end? I have next one I think is a good one for you, but go ahead.
I would agree with John where it kind of depends on, you know, who we're targeting, if it's a certain district, what the makeup looks like, and that would kind of reflect budget suggestions.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah, the only other example I'll give is like, hey, like audio, terrestrial audio has its place 100%. I like listening this morning. I'm listening to terrestrial radio as I'm driving around in Los Angeles. But like, hey, like John HMP, they want us to get that congressional district. They do not want, you know, I don't know where California 13 is, but where is it in the state, John?
Fresno, parts of Sacramento.
It's like that's the tricky thing about hey, like you're buying DMAs, you're buying it a
Yeah.
much, you know, it's hey efficiency there. But I do believe hey, like the way they contextualize it, be thinking about it and talking to your partners on it. Liz, I'm going to throw the next one to you. How many people actually are listening to ads and podcasts? I know I mostly skip through them. Is the question? Maybe you kind of steer it back to what you saw in terms of results.
Yeah, I would say in terms of results, so what we were doing was in terms of like tracking. So the goal, this was C4, we were just trying to get people to like be registered and turn out to vote essentially. So we were driving them to a site where we were inputting, they could kind of, you know, find their polling location, get registered, all of that. And we had a short code tech on the texting side of things that we had custom codes for every podcast that we did. And we would basically be sending them, you know, text, if it was like the Nelk Boys podcast, text Nelk to the short code. And then we were able to track how many people were actually doing that. And this is very surprising to me because this was something I was like, there's no way this is going to work. Like, I didn't have faith in it, to be honest. It ended up being one of our cheapest channels, in terms of getting people into like the voter funnel, if you will. And getting them to take action. So I think part of that was a lot of what we were doing was host read ads. You know, it kind of the voice isn't necessarily changing. It's, you know, it feels very authentic because it's like, oh, this, podcast I listen to every day, they're talking about this and they're supporting this cause. So I think that definitely plays a role in it. Obviously, it will vary. There might be some drop off on like a host read versus an insertion read ad. But it definitely surprised me in terms of how well we were not able to just drive reach, but also drive performance.
And I'll piggyback on what Liz said. Hey, when I was at Sirius and Pandora, and I do want to shout out, they have engage each of these partners in terms of, hey, their podcast capabilities, because it is evolving. But like, I recall, like the advocacy clients, these were some progressive advocacy clients, but they were buying like Pod Save America, progressive Pod Save America, NBC, MSNBC. When you match that audience in the prescriptive way, like Liz and team they did not go to MSNBC for their campaign. I don't think they'd see the end results, but they found the right people. The Bro Network, is that correct, Liz? The right Bro?
The Bro.
Brovo. Hey, you find the right match of audience. Amazing, the results. Like I would see advocacy campaigns that start small and it'd be like, we'll take maximum inventory, because it's like, when you find that it takes work, but it can be transformative, as Liz shared. And we will share these slides. Thankfully, Liz and John both gave us the okay to share these out. So I want to just thank you guys. We'll wrap up in a second. Just thank you guys both for joining. And KB, you can chance for one more slide. You're almost done. You've done a great job. Okay, Basis Select, guys. We're going to be doing a CTV session in about 5 weeks. Please join us. Same kind of thing. Hey, like, hopefully shedding light with like true experts like John and Liz. What we're here to do is like, hey, we're a technology company, DSP. We do media planning tools. The way we articulate, I love one of our senior leaders, Mike Olson, talks about it. It's like, we absorb complexity. That's our job at Basis, and hopefully simplify the process of reaching, whether that's voters or consumers, for your product. Very simple. So please reach out to us. We're super stoked to work on this election. As we wrap up, I just want to say one more thank you as we go to the final slide, I think. Thank you to Liz. Really appreciate you joining today. Know you guys have a lot going on. And John, super thankful for you also joining. Kristen, great to see you. We will see you in a month. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Everybody on here, you will get a copy of this, the video of the presentation with the deck. Please share it out if it's useful. And then last but not least, here's our contact information. If you have any specific questions, Liz and John, follow them on LinkedIn. These are true experts. Tremendous resource. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Have a terrific rest of your day. Enjoy March Madness, and we'll see you in April. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.